All right, all right, all right. Hello, everyone. This is Diamond Rivera. And if you see me right now, I know the setting looks a little bit different. We just had some technical difficulties. New York's Wi Fi sometimes is sucky. But today, this afternoon, we have a really, really great episode for you as well. Just to let you know, guys, if you see things tuning in and out, it happens. We work with it. But again, today on the live discussions with Diamond podcast, we really do have a special guest. But before we get started, just to let you know that this episode here is available on Facebook, YouTube, and as well will be available on the Du Bakshata Radio website, dubakshata.radio.com, where you'll be able to listen to this interview in high quality. And today, people, this afternoon, we have an amazing guest, a legend, a how should I say, just a figure in our dance community that has stood the test of time, that has influenced so many dancers, that has actually brought dancers from all over the states to Chicago, embraced them, and now these artists are loved by the Chicago community. And today we have all the way from Chicago, the one and only Zeke from Physique Dance Academy.
What's up, everyone? What's up? What's up? What up? How are you,
What?
Diamond?
I'm good, Zeke. I am amazing. Honestly, I really want to thank you today so much for coming on the platform. Like we've talked privately as well. I followed you for so many years, realizing that people like you are rare, especially in our community. We know throughout the years and decades how many dancers have come and gone, but it's artists like you that seriously are the symbol of consistency, of relevancy, of reinvention. I mean, the list goes on. But again, and you're a busy person, and realizing even through this pandemic, you're still working hard, still helping your community. And honestly, I think today really is a great chance to celebrate all of your success.
Thank you very much. And yeah, definitely. I think um, this whole COVID situation is kind of a representation of me and my dance career, where like I've never stopped. I feel like a lot of beginner dancers or hopefuls, they give up after a year or two of like, yo, like no one's hired me. I keep like whatever, but it's like you have to know how to sell yourself. You have to know how to like put yourself out there in a way where you're gonna be marketable. And I feel like, and if you're not marketable in one aspect, what else can you bring to the table? And I feel like that's one of the reasons why, like, preparing myself to get into this career, because I knew I was going to do this for the rest of my life. So I said, why not prepare myself? Everything from production, like I went to school for dance. I have a BFA in dance. I also went to school for education. So I went to school to be a high school teacher. I graduated, taught for 3 years. So I have both of those concepts, and that's why for me, I always say I'm a better teacher than I am a performer. And I'm a pretty good performer. I love to perform, but if I'm a better instructor, what does that tell you about my instruction? Because I feel like everyone said, you're so good, you're like this. I'm like, no, like I love to teach, and I love, like, for me, put me on there. That's why you rarely see me do a lot of performances, because I'd rather be teaching workshops than performing, because performing for me is a nightmare. I'm one of those that gets super stage fright, still do to this day, and I throw up every single time before I perform.
Wow. And it's something you said about that, because I think people don't understand, especially with dancers, we have almost those kind of rituals backstage that people don't know about. Many people maybe have a little shot before they go on. There are people I knew that would actually have to go to the bathroom and throw up and almost feel weird if they didn't, because I think what people have to understand, especially with performance, with us, especially myself, we always have that nervous anticipation. We always, whether we say it or not, we always have that nervousness because we're anticipating what we're about to do on that stage. And I think what happens is when it comes to performers, a lot of them perform so much and they kind of lose touch with the education process. And it's artists like you that have been able to still educate the masses and still be relevant without always having to do something on a stage.
Exactly.
And for me, I mean, doing this so many years of myself and seeing you not just performing, not just teaching, but then also being a figure, through media. when we talked about as well your time with Nuevo Tech back in the early 2010s, and seeing you emceeing at competitions. I remember those days when bachata was actually starting, and realizing how integrated you were with the bachata scene, especially in Chicago, being one of the first people, honestly, to push it out there, because we understood dancing for so long. Bachata was an afterthought. Salsa was king for so many years. And when bachata came, it was a slow progression from the other side of the world in Australia, and it kind of seeped through. And then people like Ataca Alemana and Island Touch came. And as people also like yourself that took that chance and wanted to show their community something, and definitely know tonight we'll be able to, or today we'll actually be able to talk a little bit more about that. But as I start with all of my interviews, I'd love to understand the artist before the success. So kind of give us a glimpse of who Zeke was or is before dance came into your life.
So you know what? It's funny because I was a athlete. I actually had a running scholarship. I was not supposed to go into dance. I was just going to be a high school teacher. I actually won a scholarship in Illinois. It's called the Golden Apple Scholarship, which was I was awarded $50,000 to go to school. But part of the deal was you have to be a teacher to get the scholarship, and you have to teach in a school of need for 5 years after you're done teaching, or after you've graduated, to pay. If not, you got to pay that back. And so I said, okay, perfect. So I'm going to go to school to be in education. Plus, I also had a running scholarship. I used to run track and field, and I used to play volleyball. So I was actually pretty athletic. I was always pretty athletic. The only dance I ever did was in being in all the quinceañeras, the Sweet 15. So that's the only kind of dance experience. But I was actually pretty good at it. I could look at something, pick it up, and be like, okay, I can do it, boom, boom. And then throughout high school, I was in so many, like my freshman and sophomore year, that my junior and senior year, like I was choreographing for my friends. Like, hey, I'll choreograph for yours. I'll do it for your sister. I'll do it for free. Not because I was thinking I was going to do anything. Then I started getting booked for it. And I'm like, wait, like, this is real. But it was kind of part of it. But so that's the closest I had. It wasn't until I hurt my knee running that I stopped running for a little bit. And my roommate in college, his girlfriend was in the dance program at the school I went to, which is called Knox College. It's in Galesburg, Illinois, in central Illinois. Amazing liberal arts school. Well, she was in the dance program, and they were bringing in Chicago's about 3 hours away from the school. They were bringing in this dance instructor to teach a workshop. And because it was such a small community, they knew they weren't going to fill it. So they're like, you have to bring 3 people, or else you're going to lose a grade. You get bonus points or whatever. Yeah. You won't get a grade if you don't bring people to come. So I went with my roommate, and we were dancing. It was like a modern workshop, like those kind of crazy modern, the one that you're like, what the hell is that? Yeah. Move, feel, whatever.
Yes.
And literally, like the instructor pulls me, and she's like, oh my God, are you part of the dance program? You're so amazing. And I'm like, no, like I don't dance. She's like, you're so good. You should think about it. It stuck in my head. That was in the fall of 98. In the spring of 99, it was still going through my head. It was going through my head. And I said, you know what? I'm going to be a dancer. And I just transferred schools. Luckily, the scholarship I had, there was 50 participating universities all over Illinois. And the school that I ended up going to was called Rivera College Conservatory of Dance. It was ranked 5th next to the Juilliard in Fine Arts School.
Wow.
So I ended up going there, and it was like a dance conservatory. But the dance conservatory, to my not unknowing, was they were going to close. They were going to the school lost its funding, so they had no more funding. So they were going to close the school without. They didn't let anyone know, but they were trying to see how they were going to raise money. So I got accepted. So I was number 1, a minority. Number 2, I was a male. So I was fitting all the criteria because I got a full scholarship. And I'm like, through my audition, which was a video I just recorded me freestyling, doing like whatever. Yeah. I'm like, why are they picking me? Like, there has to be I'm over like, oh my God, I'm good. Like, yeah, I got picked. And I'm like, I was a status. They needed me to help prove that program, which is fine. I mean, whatever. However, I was in the school with people like, you see how like ballet, all the technique and everything. These people were dancing. They were 4 or 5 years old. Like, and here you have me who doesn't know long story short, when they told me you need your leotard, you need your leggings, you need your dance belt, you need your dance shoes. I went to the dance store. I'm like, I need a dance belt. And they go, show me. I'm like, no, I need a belt. And they're like, no, this is a dance belt, which is like a dog strap. Yes. That's how I was like, what the hell is this shit? Literally, I had no idea. Like, I'm like, what is this? I was dancing literally 8 hours a day, plus my academic classes, and we only had 15 days off the whole year.
Wow.
So in 2 years, I ended up forcing myself to be at the level of these dancers who've been dancing their whole life.
Wow. And that right there shows the hard work and determination. Because like you said, you being older, being kind of in a realm of younger students, sometimes that can play a mental game with you. And like you said, having that notion of why did they pick me? But then you actually taking that initiative and taking that responsibility and accountability for yourself to say, okay, they picked me. Now I have to show them why they made the right decision.
And now I'm living the opposite life where I have my dancers are all in their 20s, early 30s.
Mhm.
You have this 40, about to be 41-year-old still kicking their butts. Like, and I always tell them, I'm 40. How are you guys tired? Come on, you gotta. Now I'm the one showing them. You gotta step it up. Because this 40-year-old man.
Yeah.
And last year I was heavier. I mean, I've lost like almost 60 pounds since COVID.
Mhm.
So I was heavier back then, and I was still showing them off. I was still faster. I mean, I was dying inside, but I was like, I can't let them see that, their instructor. But now it's like, before I had to prove to my hires that I was good at you, now I got to prove to my students who are believing in me, like, well, you're a director, you're my instructor. Like, I trust you, so I got to keep being relevant. I got to keep being up to date. I got to keep training. So that's why I'm always putting like my hashtags, always a student, because I still to this day, like. Take workshops online. Like when I was at congresses before, I would take privates with different instructors. My goal was to always take one private with a different instructor for something, just to bring back, so.
Yeah. And I think that's also a lost art, maybe with some artists, is they just come to these events and just focus on themselves, focus on performing whatever classes they need to teach. But it's almost come a rarity when you have those same instructors saying, I'm always a student of the game, because when you lose that insight, it really just warps your whole teaching experience. And I've seen it from the outside looking in. So my question is now, from your dancing in college, how did you kind of get into quote unquote the Latin scene? And the reason I even asked that, because I've known for many years with New York and Chicago, they have a very unique relationship, especially in the Latino community, with Chicanos, Puerto Ricans, especially Puerto Ricans in New York as well, and the Mexican community, realizing the culture aspect is so rich. So realizing, that type of style of dance and that cultural influence is definitely imminent. So again, really, how did you kind of get involved in that type of scene?
There are two separate worlds that if you learn how to combine them, that's what I think has been the formula to my success. Learning how to prepare yourself with not just one simple thing, but like everything. It's like, for example, if you're going to go to school, like, when you take those classes, like, what do I need this class for? And then like 2 years later, oh my God, that one class I took, like now I see this is what this is for. But because I knew I was going to be in dance, I'm like, I want to be well-rounded, So luckily, like cumbia, like bachata, like salsa, that has all been in my life. Even though I'm not Puerto Rican or Cuban or Dominican, I'm Mexican. For us, it was more the cumbia that was in our family that we danced, whatever. But everything else, like I studied it, like I got to go to Dominican Republic and study about merengue, bachata, bolero cultures, Same thing with like, I love, because when I studied Spanish, that's what I went to. My major was Spanish for high school. So I got to go to Honduras. So I got to study the Garifuna culture, even though the Garifuna culture is from Belize, but like it's really heavy in Honduras. So like everything from to like the dialects, everything. So like I can really give me information about Spanish, and I'll school you on that too. I'm prepared for that. But so like me learning how to be like, okay, well, how can I use this ballet, this jazz, this technique? And one of the classes I love to teach, and if you look at my record in congresses and what I've taught, I always say I have to teach a body movement class, no matter what. Body exploration come by body movement, because I studied kinesiology in school, because I'm like, I knew like for fitness, for whatever it is, like I teach you how to really understand how to move your ribs. But I don't, and it's funny because my technique classes are a little bit different, where either people like them or they hate them. There's no like, okay, they either really like them or they hate them. And then later on, they're like, you know what? I can see why this is important. I can see why this is necessary, but people don't teach it. People don't know how to sell it. People are not creative enough to create their style or their format of what they're going to teach for people to actually want to take it, until they see the struggles, and until they see like what are the outcomes from this? Like, oh, you know what? I can now move. I don't feel as stiff. I can now isolate my shoulders. I can now move my ribs. I can now move my hips. So I start to put everything together, and I think that's how learning how to incorporate them. Because everyone says ballet is the foundation of all dance. Show me how. Why? You can't just say that and be like, it is because it is. Like, no, like it's not. Like it doesn't have to be. You know.
Yeah.
It can play a role if you know how to incorporate it, but it doesn't have to be. So I feel like I was just very smart at how to create it all and blend it in. You know.
No, I agree. And even when you're talking about ballet, and I think I know where it comes from, it's really focused on the technique aspect, especially with women or just ballet dancers in terms of their points, making sure their lines are correct and straight, but also realizing too, when we're talking about salsa dancing, bachata dancing, I love the lines. I love the points. But many people are not there to see the lines and the points. We're there to see the body movement.
If you're competing, that's a different story because we're
absolutely
looking at that. But if you're doing a show, like we don't have to see, and that's why a lot of people don't know how to separate competition dance and social dancing and performance dance. All three, those are the three different concepts, right? Social dancing has one thing: no one's watching you. No one should be watching you, right? Hence, my little tattoo says, "Dance like no one's watching."
Hey.
When you dance, throw down, you know, like no one's looking to see if you're pointing your foot. No one's looking to see if you lost your posture and your butt sticking out. On the contrary, the more you stick out your butt, the more they're going to like, you know, look at you. Whatever. Yeah. Performances, you don't want to be sloppy where you're like, ooh, like as a team, you're not synchronate. Like, yo, like you guys are looking like you're fighting each other. You're dragging her, you're pulling her. Like, is that right? And then you have competition where like, I'm scoring you. I'm looking for you to mess up. I'm looking for you. So like, we need to see all these, like, you need to learn how to separate them. You know,
it has to be kept. I mean, we have to really. I completely understand. I think what happens is, especially in our scene, what we'll get into really is what that separation between competition and performance. Because I think with performance, many people take that competition attitude and try to incorporate it within their performance. But from experience, from seeing it as a spectator, that's not always the case. It's not always going to work. So now, when you started dancing, this is really, like you said, late 90s, and it's actually around the same time I was dancing. I was much younger, but I was still being taught by people that you knew of, like David Melendez, as well as Edwin Rivera, and realizing now this dance scene was really starting to grow. So my question to you was, is really, when did Chicago, and when did you notice Chicago started really now having dance teams and started socials or maybe even congresses in that aspect?
Well, you know what? Like I said, like after I graduated from dance school, I had one more year left to finish to my to be a high school teacher, my education degree. So I went to DePaul University, and at DePaul University, I decided I was going to join a fraternity.
Okay.
And I ended up taking another year because I was so into everything I was doing that. I ended up becoming president of the student organization. I was like so involved. I was that kid that loved school. Like I was like the annoying kid that was in everything that you're like, I hate that. You know? It's okay. I'll go back and do it again. I'm proud of it. But I think that's type of person that I like to help out. I like to do a lot of things. So I organized the Latino festival, like the Hispanic Heritage Month or whatever we did like in September. So I hired Latin Rhythms, which was probably at that point, it was the second school in Chicago for salsa dancing. I hired them. They came to perform and teach a lesson, and then they had a raffle for some free classes. I ended up winning the free classes, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take this class. And then I started taking the classes, and from there, everything kind of set off. I'm not sure if you know who Sekou McMiller is.
Absolutely, Sekou.
So Sekou came from Chicago, and Sekou was one of my first instructors. And he was one of the instructors there. And it's funny because I had joined in January, and then in March, they were having auditions for Latin Rhythms of School. And Sekou was just an instructor there. So he was having his own auditions for Descarga Caribe, which was his old dance company. So I was planning to audition for Latin Rhythms because I seen their first Chicago Salsa Congress, which was in 2001, I want to say. I saw their routine and fell in love with it. I'm like, you know what? I like that kind of dance. Like it wasn't nothing I had ever done before, but I'm like, that's pretty cool. And then they got to go to the first ever Puerto Rico, the Picardo, when it was the Picardo.
Yes, I remember that.
Chicago is the second longest running Congress in the world besides Puerto Rico. And so I was already planning to audition for Latin Rhythms, but then Sekou kind of was like, hey, yo, I'm having auditions. Here's my flyer. I'm not supposed to announce it, but you should go. I'm like, okay, because back in school, they would tell you audition for everything. It's not always like, and here it's now. It's like if you audition for them, you're like, whatever. So I went to audition for Sekou's, and I remember like it was like you had to bring your own audition piece for like a minute. So I ended up doing merecumbe. But you know, I had that intro, like the little whatever intro. So I did my contemporary stuff when I had my leg up to here and I was flipping and turning, whatever. And everyone was kind of like, "What is? Where did he come from?" And then I started dancing the little I knew, and then I got picked right away. So then the next weekend was the auditions for Latin Rhythms. But he's like, "Well, if you join my company, you can't be on any of the team." And I was like, "Okay, I guess I'll join." I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And then I only lasted with Sekou, like the team, for 6 months, and then I quit because I'm like, it was just not. It didn't work out. It wasn't like what I expected. Nothing bad. It was just I feel like he was just starting his team, and it wasn't where I was. I came from a professional background, so I was like, yo, like we don't work like this, you know. So I just kept taking class at Latin Rhythms, and I didn't want to join the team. Like, you know what? I don't want to join the team. Like, I just want to train. I didn't really know a lot about dancing, so I continued with Latin Rhythms. And even though I did tell the owner, Marix, at the time, I'm like, yo, like I'm really interested in your team, but I just want to train. And because I knew I was going to be an instructor, what I ended up doing, I was really smart. I said, you know what? I want to be a follow. I want to learn to follow, not because I'm gay and I want to do all the like fit me, because I knew I need to know the girl. I need to know the follow role.
Yes.
So I said, is it okay if I just pay to take class to follow? And they were kind of like, I don't know. But like, okay, fine. A lot of guys did not want to dance. I remember they were kind of like, yeah, I don't want to. Like they would skip me or whatever. And I'm like, it's cool. I said, that's fine. And then it came to the point where there was no one else, so they had no choice. And then all of a sudden, I became the one that they were all fighting to dance with because I was actually pretty decent. I can do like a lot. So they were like, you know. And then little by little, once I was there, they asked me like, hey, so we know you dance, but would you be ever interested in like, we're going to be out of town. We're going to be out of the country. They were going to Puerto Rico. Like, would you mind like teaching one of my the beginner classes, this and that? And I was like, the sub for it. Now I'll teach you I'll show you what to teach. I'm like, sure. I started teaching and everyone get like, yo, Zeke was really good. He did good. So I started teaching there. Like I started slowly teaching there, but like the instructors there did not like teaching the bachata, the merengue, the cumbia. They were like, but they had to teach it. So I was like, guess what? You're the new this. And I was like, I'm fine. Like I was new and like whatever. Biggest mistake they ever made. I felt like the Pretty Woman moment where she walked in and you're like, big mistake with the bags.
Yes.
Because then everyone started taking my classes because like I started making it fun. I started making this, and then I started my teams, and then it was the rest is history.
Oh my God. And realizing something you said I love is you made it fun, because I think that's what a lot of instructors' issues are. They're just teaching the steps, maybe even the educational portion, but you have to make it interactive for your students because evidently you want them to come back. It's easy to just take one class and say, oh, no, I'm not really interested. But like you said, you got that opportunity and kind of that big mistake moment of, oh, you gave it to someone who actually is going to probably take it further. And as well, even while we're talking, we got my boy Ramon Brito all the way from Bulgaria.
What up, Ramon?
Shout
I remember
out.
him from the FNF times.
Oh my God.
I met them back in New York Congress before Choco passed, when he had that issue where no one was getting paid. And we were all trying to find Choco. I love him to death. And that's how me and also actually became friends, because we were standing in line waiting to talk to Choco. And he was going, and I'm like, damn, this guy's a girl, like, whatever. And I'm like, who are you? Like, I didn't know who he was, whatever. And then we just became like really close, and that's it. Like, and Ramon was part of that. I remember that.
Yeah, Fausto. This was Fausto and Farah times. We're going all the way back when you said F and F. Even Ramon says yes, I remember. I mean, even and I love about you, Zeke, is the honesty, because even that little story you told, that was something that was serious. Realizing
I was still friends with him and everything. Like I've gone through so many promoters, and like I was actually linked with an event that happened in Mexico, which was an amazing event at the Salsa Mambo Fest in Puerto Vallarta, where the event was canceled on the second day, and everyone was pretty much SOL. And I had to show face because I took 100 people to this event, and everyone was kicked out of the rooms. Like the event was, and the promoter, like I know for a fact he was screwed over. Long story short, but like I feel like the Albert Torreses, you know, like I worked with him, you know, like, you know, you have to learn how to work with people and like not take things personal and just like look business and learn how to separate them. Like, and that's why I consider myself friends with a lot of artists and promoters, because I make those relationships and I know how to separate both. Miguel Guiriguito from DC, he's like my brother. Like I've been with him since the first DC Bachata Congress, and I had not missed one since 2020 because of that.
Yes.
So.
And that's the thing that separates you, is that the relationships you create with different organizers and people. And so understanding this, you're now, of course, you're in the scene and you're dancing. Can you give us an understanding of what the Chicago scene was like in really its early days?
So you know what? There was only, I remember Latin Rhythms used to host these things called mixers, which was like a social,
Hmm.
and they stopped doing it. But when I started teaching, I'm like, hey, we should do performance classes. These guys want to learn a little choreography. Can we do it? Like, yeah. Well, what we're gonna do? Let's bring back the mixers. So that started happening. But prior to that, the only other person that was doing socials or anything was Sekou with Descarga
Hmm.
and Latin Street, which is in a studio. So we had maybe 3 socials a month. And then at that time, the Chicago Salsa Congress used to do once a month at this place called Presidential Towers. And that was like to raise money for the Chicago Congress for the year, like for the February. So that was it. Like that was like all they had. And then there was the clubs, you know, the regular club, but
Hmm.
they didn't have no bachata. It was like one bachata a night. And it was like, that's when all the salseros went to get water or go off the break. And that's when I'm like, yeah, let me show off. I love bachata.
Oh my God, Zeke, the same thing was in New York. I mean, when bachata, it was the bathroom break, it was the water break, it was, oh, let me go talk to my friends now. I mean, and now it seems so long ago when that was. I mean, and as we've talked as well privately, you being one of the first people to really integrate bachata into our community, into the Chicago community specifically, when do you feel that started?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
No, sorry. The question really was, when did you feel that started of bachata
Oh,
becoming something
so
and
it's
you
funny because there was a lot of salsa. There was a lot of salsa teams, and I actually started my salsa team. It's called the Estilo Dance Company. That's when I was with Novel Tech, and
Mhm.
I started them because I was a high school teacher, and so I used to I have a dance program, and a lot of them were graduating. They're like, hey, we still want to dance. We don't want to leave you. What can we do? Well, let me start a salsa team outside of the high school.
Yeah.
So like I had this little team. So there was maybe like Andy Cruz used to have his team,
Yes.
Tornadoes del Swing. Um, and then so it was just these teams like Latin Rhythms, Descarga. So there was like those are the only 3 teams you kind of went to.
Mhm.
And then I remember I had my team. So they were, but again, I felt like I was treated like, oh, Zeke just has his high school kids. He doesn't have like I never had the professional kids, but I was
Mhm.
with Latin Rhythms, and then I also had my kids. And then they were getting older. So then in 2006,
Mhm.
I was actually featured on the Christina show.
Mm.
I was on the Cristina show. I went on there to dance when the whole Bailando por un Sueño came out show.
Mhm.
So I went representing my studio, Latin Rhythms at the time, and I met Robert Lay, who was from Dallas.
Yes. Roberto, yeah, Roberto Lay.
So
Yeah.
Roberto, at that time when he was with Sandy, his wife, they did a samba. I did cha-cha and mambo or something. They were just showing different parts. And we were talking, and he's like, hey, he's like, bro, you should you should come to Dallas. You know, I'm gonna talk to the promoter. Maybe he can bring you out. And the promoter was like, hey, so Robert really recommended you. Like, what can you do? What can you provide for me? Like, look, I can't afford to bring you, but if you want to come, like, you know what? I'll buy my flight. I'll go. Like, it's cool. And like, I'm like, hey, can I bring my dancers? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, let me teach bachata. He goes, bachata. He goes, oh, I don't know. I'm like, let me teach bachata. I'm like, you nothing to lose. Like, you're not paying me. So,
Yeah.
so he's like, all right, cool. So he's the first person to give me a break. But at that time, one of the only other instructors that was teaching in the U.S. was Rodney Aquino, Mr. Rachata.
Mhm.
So I met him. That was Mi Gente days. I met him through Mi Gente.
Ooh.
And
Wow.
yeah, so Mi Gente, so like we started talking. He's like, oh, I see you're going to teach bachata. Yeah, you're going to teach bachata. Okay. But he's like, he didn't have a team. I did. So then that's when I did a performance class. And he's like, yo, this class is like the Yamuleo bachata. Like, who the hell are you? Like,
Yeah.
why don't you guys travel? I'm like, because nobody picks us to travel. No one like, dude, I remember like we used to like beg when you have to submit videos to go to places. Never
Oh my
got.
God.
Albert Torres literally would never call us back. And I'm like, yo, like, I'll pay. Like, we'll pay to be there. Like, we'll pay
Yeah.
to participate. Just let us perform. Never heard, because it was bachata, right? The only person who started to slowly incorporate that was Andy Cruz, because they had a bachata merengue routine, because he did that kind of stuff before. So he kind of opened the doors for bachata in the Congress scenes. But I started teaching it at the Congress. So Dallas is the first time. And then from there, Rodney hired me to go to the first ever Salsa, the San Francisco Bachata Festival 2 years later. So 2007 is when I went to Dallas. And then I got rebooked again, and then he kept hiring me for bachata. And then little by little, it went from there. So 2009, I would say, is when it started to pick up here in Chicago, for sure.
Wow. And then you even talked about briefly as well your time with Nuevo Tech. And if people don't understand what Nuevo Tech was, it was our YouTube for our dance scene. It was, you could see your groups from Chicago, groups from Australia, groups from New York, all the groups you love to hear about, you saw on flyers. You could see where they performed at congresses, festivals, and events. And my first sight of you was during Nuevo Tech because I would just click tons of videos and see what's happening elsewhere. This was also where the bachata scene
Just think of
started.
the guy with
Yeah, so when you had the mohawk, and I
a
loved
funny
it.
mohawk. Like, yeah, so just think of that. I have no hair anymore now because of that, because I used to dye my hair. I used to do crazy.
Mm.
And I actually, the first couple of years I did mobile tech, the first year, I actually used to put weave in my hair, like to put
Oh
tracks.
my god.
I was a mess. But anyway, yeah, so I started with mobile tech, and it was funny. It was like, I think you talked about this earlier. It was a little bit of a mini drunk moment, nothing to be proud
Yes.
of. But because of that little drunk moment, I kind of proved myself that I can handle the mic and be on there. And I slowly became the Perez Hilton of dance because I knew everyone. I knew a lot of people and I interacted with a lot of people. I knew dirt on them, so I would ask them questions about that. To me, one of the most interesting one was with David and David and Paulina from Mexico, the World Antu Champions.
Mhm.
Them, Luis and Maritza, it was at the World Latin Dance Cup. We're all in Acapulco the month before,
Mhm.
and we all suffered an earthquake. So
Wow.
like my question to them was like, so where were you when the earthquake hit you? And they were like, oh my God. And like, so I would ask them personal questions versus just the regular. So how does this and how was that? I would ask them stuff like, I remember like with Grisel Ponce and Andy Cruz, they had just won Sábado Gigante. And I'm like, I knew they had issues getting paid. So I was like, so how much money did you get in Sábado Gigante? And they were all like, so I was asking, it was so I was asking them personal questions. Like with Tito, like that was the funniest one. Tamara didn't go there because she was pregnant with Triam and she was about to give birth.
Mhm.
And I was like this, I'm like, Tito, so she kind of looks like Tamara. She's not. Like, what's going on here? Like, do you just have a lot of these wannabe Tamara lookalikes in your closet? Like, is that how you found here? They were laughing, like, no, it's because it's like,
Yeah.
Tito's really funny. So, like, little stuff like that, but I feel like just learning how to be different, like, I feel like that kind of helps. I wasn't disrespectful, but I was like, how can I make this interview different and not the same old cliche, like, who's your favorite dancer? Who do you look up to? Blah, blah, blah. Like, no, like, tell me like the real like scoop. Like, like, I heard you didn't get paid for this promoter. What happened? Like little stuff,
Absolutely. And the thing is, we knew about those stories, but it was also characters like yourself that when you came, it was interesting. And we were kind of waiting for, okay, when is the next interview? Who's the next person he's going to talk to? Because, like you said, it was so easy to just ask, how's the performance? That's very basic. But when you kind of know some more information, you kind of want to dig a little deeper. But also, you have that relationship with the artist. That's the difference. Because if you don't know them and you're just finding a rumor out and trying to figure it out, that's where those lines can get crossed. But knowing that you had those relationships, you could see it through the video. But also when you told me that moment of you, how it happened, but realizing the people who were behind that with Nuevo Tech, they did interviews, but I think it was even better when they incorporated people like yourself and other artists to then do interviews. I think it kind of brought out more liveliness out of it. And now it gave, because remember, technology was starting to really boom. YouTube was.
Oh my God, you know who was the best one? I'll never forget with Magna Gopal. I love Magna.
Yes.
Magna, I remember I asked her to dance and she turned me down. And instead of being that, I was a petty labelle. I was super petty because I'm like,
Oh,
damn,
God.
she had told me, oh no, I'm gonna take a rest, and then she danced with someone else, and I was like,
Oh.
and it was, and I was sitting in the sidelines watching. Okay, but I'm working Noble Tech, Chicago Congress. She was there, and I'm like, so Magna, I have a question. I'm like, what advice do you give to those beginners who like to ask professionals like yourself to dance, who get turned down? And she's like, oh no, I dance with everyone. I'm like, really? Because yesterday you turned me down. And she literally was like, she goes, Zeke, no, I didn't. She goes, you did, but it's okay. That's what I want people to understand. It's okay. Like, don't take it personal,
Yeah.
I was petty LaBelle. I was like, so, and then the whole Congress, she would look at me, Zeke, let's dance. Zeke, I'm like, girl, you don't have to. It's okay. Like we ended up dancing, and then she led me, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun, but like little stuff like that, where like, holy crap! And ever since that, calling you out in a professional way, like it was cool. But ever since that, now Magna will never ever forget me.
Oh my God. And it honestly has to sometimes be those honest moments that, then you can kind of laugh it off afterwards. And like you said, now you're great friends. So understanding, because we knew with Nuevo Tech, what it brought. And then over the years with YouTube, now we started seeing more shows. We started seeing groups from all over the world. When did you notice that bachata was really starting to, in a sense, take over? Because salsa was king. at
I
one
knew
point.
it. I knew it when in Congresses, in the headlines, it would be the so and so salsa and bachata festival, bachata Congress, bachata this. Oh, so and so now with the bachata room when they had to keep incorporating bachata because it's with YouTube and it just started getting so people started posting all these videos, all these like holy crap. I feel like the U.S. was so sheltered in a sense of where for those that didn't travel, they didn't know the Daniel and Desirees, they didn't know the Judith and Corke, they didn't know like the all these like who are these dancers, like what's all this sexiness, what's all this? So they kind of showed a different side of it, you know. So I feel like that's where that kind of like helped trigger these events, and that's how people started saying like, "Yo, you should bring so and so. Yo, you should bring so and so. Yo, you should bring so and so. If you bring so and so, like I'll bring my dancers, or I'll bring this. I'll bring you 100 people." So people are saying like, "Okay, well, let me do it," you know. So, and I feel like it was those promoters who jumped on the bandwagon and made that investment of bringing those that really profited from it.
Absolutely. So when you, as you're going through the years, past really the 2010s and over the years of performing, what were some of your most memorable Congress moments that you really still remember to these days?
I remember in the beginning of the stages before like a lot of teams were happening, my teams would actually be the ones closing the shows. Like I'll never forget. I actually, and it's funny, like La Alemana, we're pretty close. And I remember La Alemana sent me a message a year after they had just started, and she's like, "Yo, there's a video of me when I used to have long hair and I used to have a ponytail. This was back in 2007, I think. And there was a social dance. There's a video, and I'm dancing, and she sent me a video, and she's like, "Yo, so for a long time, me and my ex-partner used to copy this video and learn the steps from it, and I just come to realize it was you." And I was like, "Holy shit!" Like we used, like yeah, like we didn't really dance bachata, so we used this video to help us out. So like I remember like for us to, and I remember like they would close. We used to close the show, and they would be right before us. So it was kind of like one of those, like, oh, like we closed the show before Ataca Alemana. What? And but they would always be back there hyping us up, because we did a Bollywood routine. It was like a Bollywood bachata.
Yeah.
And I remember they were like, "Yo, I know that part. The one with the slap is coming. God, whatever." So I mean, like, I feel like just having that, you know, like having those moments where we used to close the shows, or just being up there as a headliner. I mean, seeing me like as a headliner for bachata was like, holy crap, because it was hard for you to even get invited, nonetheless, to be on a flyer.
Yes.
And I remember when I went to my first Bachata Congress in Mexico, which is in Oaxaca, they had a billboard, like those big old billboards on the freeway. My face, me, Kathy Reyes, like my old, with my rhinestone face, the one that I'm like this.
Yeah.
It was Internacional, and I was like, bro, I literally was like, that's me. Like, when did this happen? You know, like how did this happen? It happened because I kept insisting. You know, I kept, you know, knocking on doors. I kept putting myself out there. You know, so I feel like that was kind of like when I'm like, holy crap, you know, to the point where people are like, how do you do it? Like, oh my God, they pay for your flights. Oh my God, they pay for your hotel. They pay for your food, and they pay you. And I said, yeah, but it wasn't like that all the time. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, I definitely understand, because I think a lot of dancers now don't understand there was a period when you had to do things on your own. The promoters were kind of sucking things dry, if I mean to be frank, because in actuality, a lot of them, if you weren't a quote unquote headliner, if you weren't that big name, you had to work 10 times as hard year after year just to put your name out there. Evidently, what you wanted was for them to reach out to you instead of you reach out to them, because they realize is that, again, and the big problem with a lot of organizers, and I'm going to be completely honest, is how they do is they get a artist, they say, how many people can you bring?
I know that
Yes.
plays very well. And somebody tried to use that on me maybe about 2 years ago. I'll bring you if you bring me 25 people. I said, cool, I'm going to charge you this much though. Oh, I can't pay you that much. But you're about to make $4,000 off of me and you can't pay me this? I said, no worries, we're good. And they're like, you could tell they took it. I was like, oh shit, like, that's I'm like, how are you going to come up with these numbers? And like, I'm like, bro, I've been doing this for 10, 15, 16 years now. 10 years ago when you did this to me, I proved it. I did it, and I brought you 100 people. But now you want to, the only way you can bring me, you bring me 25 people. And this person is a very well reputable promoter that I won't call their name out, but they know who they are. And if they listen to this, they're going to be like, damn, I feel kind of dumb right now, you know.
Because it's you just have to be honest, because a lot of these promoters were able to get away with stuff that they were able to get away with because they had that backing. But now I would say this, after this pandemic, I know things are going to change immensely. As we've even talked as well, that when things get back to a quote unquote normal, you're not going to see the same artists that you saw 2, 3 years ago. A lot of them couldn't stay relevant, couldn't stay consistent, and it's going to show. But now my question to you is, or something I want to say is that I've noticed over the years.
Here, please. Give me 1 second, Diamond. One.
Of course, absolutely.
I'm back. Sorry. We have some roof issues going on right now with Chicago's Shea area going on here.
Oh my God, yes, the craziness and the snow in Chicago is crazy. New York as well as giving love to Texas. They are going through crazy amount of snow. But yeah, I mean, now kind of getting back to what I want to ask or talk about was I've noticed over the years, it's artists like you that built relationships with many other companies. For example, My Generation, MG from LA, Liliana, David, Saya, that family. And for me, I always watched from afar how you treated these artists, even when people like Sapphire, Carlos and Alette, who used to be part of Charisma, bringing artists to Chicago, building that network and building those relationships.
And it's funny because I'm probably one of the only ones in Chicago who has consistently bought artists like for over 10 years to my socials. I would invest, and everyone would be like, you charge so much. I'm like, you don't understand what I'm paying for to get these artists to come here. Like, it's a big investment, but I'm like, you know what, at the end of the day, if you don't want to support it, don't. And a lot of people will not come to the workshop. They'll go to the socials, then they'll see them dancing, be like, oh man, I want to take the workshop. Like, it was yesterday, you could have taken it. Like, a clear example, oh my Lord, from Ricardo and Karen, before they became big, I brought them to Chicago.
Wow.
And I remember like there was only 10, 20 people in the workshop. And I even rented a big place. I was like, oh, it's going to get packed. No one came. Then all of a sudden they get on World of Dance. I bought them twice. The second time they regretted it. And so they were like, oh, whatever. When they went on World of Dance, everyone was like, oh my God, I love them. And I'm like, oh, really? Where were you when I had them here? Like, now you didn't want them because they're on World of Dance? Like, that makes no sense. Some people are like crazy. But yeah, I feel like I've always invested in that, because at the end of the day, if Chicago was not gonna support it, at least I had that for my dancers, and all my dance teams, they got to take advantage of the workshops with them. But I loved it, and especially like when I would go to Mexico, one of the biggest agreements I had was, and which I like doing this with Lee, was that Lee would be like, yo, go be my scout, look at the talent in Mexico, and what you can do is, my anniversary was always when I had a big event. I would do it right before the week before DC. So I would bring artists to Chicago that if people that won the competition randomly, like, you know what? I'm giving you the prize to come to Chicago and to DC. So they'd be like, oh my God. So I brought in so many people from Mexico, everyone from like Jorge and Maria, from Luis and Lorenita when they were champions back, Juan Pedro and Alan, like Gio and Gabby, brother and sister. And then they would stay here for like a weekend and then go to DC. I've also had like from Peru, Declan, Natalia, Harold, and Regan, and these are people who like I treated them like I like
family.
Means I would ask them, do you want to go to a hotel or do you want to stay in my place? No, I want to stay at your place. Cool. Ricardo and Karen literally were like, Zeke. Karen was like, can I cook the entire time? They were here for a week. She cooked us breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like it was like, and I would post it. Look at Karen made us this. Karen made us that. And I would tell them, like a great example, Karel Flores. I brought it to Chicago many years ago, when she had just became solo. Or no, I think she was in Yamulesto at the time. And I brought her, and I remember she came into the workshop for ladies. It was amazing. And I remember we didn't have, we had a social, and the next day it was a Friday. We did the social. Saturday, there wasn't a social, like a big event. Everyone's like, hey, are you bringing up Karel? Are you bringing Karel? And I go, hey, there's a social. Do you want to go? And she goes, do we have to go? And I said, no. She's like, can we go to the movies? I said, yes. I'm like, she goes, oh my God. So we went to go see a scary movie. Like we went to get ice cream. We were like this. She's like, it's so amazing. This is how I like, I don't want to be forced to go somewhere I'm not. Because then then that's where you meet the artist that it was like, I'm here because I have to be here. I'm forced to be here. And then you ask them to dance and they dance with you with Malacara and you're like, damn, like that person's a diva or that person's like an asshole. Like, not that it's an asshole. As much as you want to have them enjoy it, like they're also not supposed to be there. They just went because they had to show face or because it's the dancer thing to go. No, you don't have to. Like, if I don't want to dance, I'm not going to be comfortable going somewhere. Like, you know, so that's why like I treated all these dancers. I asked them, there's this option or that option. You want, you know, so that's why I feel like it's important to treat dancers the way you want to be treated, you know. So
absolutely.
Promoter per se, which I never categorized myself, but I guess I do fall into that genre. I was one of the cool promoters that I'm like, look, like let's work together because guess what? That's another relationship where if I bring you back,
thank you,
we're cool, and if I don't, we're cool too. You know, I feel like that's why some people understand the concept of like, do not get mad or be petty with the promoter because they don't bring you back the following year.
Yeah. I mean, and that's something all artists should understand, especially through our conversation. So I really want to ask really specifically your relationship with MG. It's, I mean, through Facebook, social media, you see it, but even us talking and how important those people are to your lives, and especially even to Chicago. I mean, when I just even posted them saying how much they would love to just live in Chicago, and just seeing what the embrace that they've had over the years, especially at the Chicago International Salsa Congress, it really, that coming from all the way from California, LA, and being and feeling loved in a different city. What was that experience like for you, getting to know them and working with them over the years?
I think the biggest overall moral of the story is I opened the door for them, but they're the ones that went inside and made their house. You know, like I just did that for them, you know. I met them at the Reno Bachata Festival 2010 or 11, and they had just started like performing. Like they were always a team, but they just started like traveling to doing these events, and they were at this Bachata Festival. And I remember I was hosting the after parties, and I had these dance offs, and I remember it was Liliana and this girl named Darina, little girl. They were little. They were like 10 years old, 9 years old, 10 or like that. And against La Alemana, another girl, they had to battle each other. I'm gonna send you the link, and it's funny because Liliana hates it. Liliana hates that video because she was like a little girl battling like La Alemana, and like it was by audience applause, and like Alemana lost to Liliana. It was like a big old thing. And Alemana was like, "Oh my God, don't show that. I hate that." Anyway, so ever since that, I became really close with them, and like I see them at congresses and be like, "Oh, you should come to this event," and I would like put their name out. Hey, like if anything, like also the promoters like go, but like they never asked me. It was like I would just do that out of my way, and a lot of people would do the same thing for them. And then it started getting when they were getting bigger. So I got them to go to DC Bachata Congress. I'm like, hey Lee, like this team is really good, blah blah. And I told Saya, I'm like, hey, but if you go, you have to do your cumbia tejana routine, which is the one with the little horses they had, like, whatever. And all their dancers hated that routine. Like they hated it with I don't know why they hated it, but the audience loved. I loved it, and because I think I love cumbia. So then when they did it for Chicago Congress, I got them to come. I convinced the Chicago Congress owners, Rosita and Saladin, but I told them, you have to do this routine. And they're like, are you sure? Like, they're not going to like it. That's a girl. Chicago dances cumbia. Nonetheless, I brought them to one of my socials. They had cumbia. They were like, what is this? Like, we've never seen people like cumbia. Like, so like I would do that. But little by little, that started going. And then like they started doing their own thing. So like they started making connections with different people. And here in Chicago, people just started falling in love with them. But I tried to bring them at least once a year as much as I could. And then, so Saya right now is like, I call her like, she's like the Zeke of LA in terms of like, we might not be in the front line, but we're in the background doing all the work. Cause Saya works so hard. Saya's like, and I actually awarded her when she came to Chicago. I had a social. I gave her an award for like her contribution to like, you know, the community and stuff. And she was kind of like, why are you awarding like me? Like, and flower. It was really nice. But like I work with her, so there's only 3 people in the world that I have my competitors and my teams work with, and Saya is one of our coaches that my team gets trained with. So she's just an amazing person, you know. She's amazing. She knows what she's doing, you know. So.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, seeing with MG when they come to New York, when they come to Chicago, there's very few. Trust me, in our community, we know there's so many teams, so many different routines, but there are very few that leave an impact. And it's always, and what I love too, big ups to Saya. When I had my interview with them, it was really heartfelt because this was, of course, after the passing of David and realizing how much he meant to his community, realizing how much MG means to the dance world, because a lot of times we're in this world and we go to show and social to social, and we might just talk with the people we know, but we don't know the people that are impacted by our actions,
Oh, for
by
sure.
our performances. And realizing with you being such a contributing factor to the dance world and not just the Chicago community, I think that's what separates you, because a lot of artists who travel the world, who see themselves on a poster or a flyer, sometimes their heads get there to that point and there's no turning back.
And
But
you know
really,
what? Same thing I would do here. Sorry to interrupt you. Like I would talent from Chicago. I would take them to different events. I would go to like in Mexico. Like there's a lot
yeah,
of things that I've helped get over there as well too. Not because I had to, because like you know what, Chicago's very talented. When people come to
oh
the
yeah,
Chicago, they're like, who are these? Where are they? Why don't they travel? Because they don't travel. The one bad thing about Chicago is that we have two type of dancers, very talented but lazy, that don't like to put the work to get themselves out there. But Chicago's very talented, and then we have others who are just broke, who like, yo, I can't afford it. Like I work, like I
yeah.
can't afford to like, put that out there right now. So, which is understandable. But I feel like people who really want to get out there, like it, just understand that it's a big investment. It's a huge investment, and that you're not going to get booked right away. And if you do, I think there's very few people that have got that. You know, like
Absolutely.
give me names, give me a list, because I don't think there's many people who just out of nowhere like, hey, I'm gonna book you because that one video you posted. It has happened, but like
Yeah,
they still out there. You know what I mean?
no, absolutely. Because again, people don't realize in this dance world, it can be fun, but it can be very expensive. And it's especially traveling, costumes, travel expenses, you name it. Unless promoters are going to pay everything for you, unless you're the newest viral sensation and you're constantly coming up with new choreos and new visuals, it's not easy. But also talking with you, we have here all the way from Australia, Mr. Nestor Manuelian.
What up, Nestor?
Yes, giving love to him as well and his company. So now, realizing, of course, throughout the years, everything you've been able to contribute. Now comes the Chicago International Salsa Congress. And with Chicago, I think it's been around 20 years, 21 years, around that, 20 years. So realizing they've taken that initiative of creating a virtual event. Big ups to the media team out there with Winston and Michael Mabo and Noel and the rest of the crew there.
No,
And
wait,
they,
yeah, all of them, yeah.
yes, they put on a spectacular event that still incorporated artists from dancers, even to musicians, and still keeping it safe. And to me, the two days they were able to do that were spectacular. But something in particular really affected me greatly was seeing that award you got and realizing now your efforts are being recognized. If you didn't feel it before, now you could see it. And with that being a 20-year anniversary and receiving that award, what was that moment like for you?
You know what? It was a little like bittersweet because I had planned when I found out, Zeke, next year you will be awarded. I was like, and it's the 20th anniversary. We're gonna go all out, prepare yourself for something big. And I was like, oh my god, perfect opportunity to bring my parents from Mexico. I want them to be here. You know, they've never seen me perform. They've never, nonetheless, get an award. So like, you know, for me, I want my family to be like, all those events, all those family parties, events, everything I've missed. This is why, you know, and it took this long to get recognized. And I knew that was not going to happen, you know, and it's different because it's almost like for them to see a video of it's going to be like, yeah, whatever, you know, like, okay, congratulations. But when you presence it with all that applause or whatever, so whatever, either way, but like, so it was like, that was my big goal to have that. So, but at the same time, I said, look, like whether I get recognized virtually or whatever, I just think that's just an honor to be in the same Hall of Fame of everyone else who's been, it's called a Keeper of the Flame.
Yeah.
And I feel like for me, it's like, it was emotional in a sense of where I spoke from the heart. I did one take. I said, I don't want any edited. I just want whatever I say, this is what you're going to post. And like, are you sure? I said, yes, because this is it, you know? And I talked, you can go back and listen to the speech, but overall, I talked about what it meant to be like, how you have to keep your own flame, how everyone has that match, that lighter inside them, but you're responsible for it, or you have to find something to help you light it, you know? And I am a 3-time Project Runway reject. I say that all the time with pride. And I never got picked to be on the show. I was very close in season 5. But you know, it wasn't meant to be. And I don't know where I would be right now if I would have made it on the show and became this amazing professional, like, and made that my life, you know? It was a hobby, but I never gave up. And now I'm making costumes for a lot. I've made costumes for so many different people, everything from Tito and Tamara to Georgette to Grisel Ponce to Ataca Alemana to you name it, I've done it, like, and people with not even anyone with names. Like I've made wedding dresses, prom dresses, stuff that people are like, so to me, like, that's great, so I was able to do that and still stay relevant with what I'm doing with dance. So, and that's why, like, and this whole Keeper of the Flame also kind of symbolizes everything with COVID. Like, I haven't given up. Like, it's been 16 years, and if it's another 16 years, and that's how long it takes for us to get through COVID, I'll do it, because I'm not in this. I'm in it for, obviously, this is my career, so I do make money. I live off of this. But this does not define me, which means if I would have lost my studio or if I would have lost whatever, I start all over again and start, because I do this from the heart. I do this because I actually am a dancer and I believe in it. I'm not just the person that might be talented and tries to make money off of it. Like, there's a difference, and that's why not many of those survive. You survive for a couple of years, but after that, it gets old, and you're like, you know what? I don't want to do this no more.
Absolutely.
And if I want to do it, I'm gonna keep doing it. Until I know that flame is like out and like that's it. Like my time is done. But other than that, so it was an honor to receive it. So thank you to Rosita and Saladin, the owners of the Chicago International Salsa Congress. It was nice, and they're supposed to be doing a Chicago Salsa Congress 2.0 in August. Hopefully by then we'll be a little more open, and I'll be receiving my award there in person. So we'll see how that goes.
Absolutely. And before we get into sort of our conclusion, we have here from Nestor saying, Zeke, working from the front or back, dancing to costumes, you have always done an amazing job. Much respect from the other side of the world. With you actually talking about costumes and realizing, that your impact from being a performer, being a presence through media, and now also working closely with the artists in terms of their gear.
And I always say this, I've done it all, everything from assisting backstage to help with like lining people up, calling people for their, like, everything from setting up floors, everything from helping with promotion. I've done it all. Like, I've always said, like, look, at the end of the day, I'm already here. It doesn't hurt me to sit a couple hours, do this or do that, and I feel like this is where my first step to get into the judging world was working with, and Billy Fajardo is not the easiest person to work with. He knows it. This man is a very, like, I'm this and I'm this and I'm going to do this. He's from New York, and, I'm the first and I'm this, he hates when I imitate him, but he knows it's true. He booked me because he went to the DC Bachata Congress, and he's like, yo, like, you have this thing on lockdown. Like, people respect you. And guess what? Like, he said, I need you for my backstage and my summit. You want to do it? And I said, okay. And then from there, he's like, hey, you know what? You've been dancing for a long time. I didn't know you had a big career like this. I didn't know you like that. He's like, you have a pretty extensive background. He's like, would you be interested in starting to prep to be a judge? And I said, for sure. But in Mexico, I was already being booked to be like, to judge all these events. Yeah. And now, like, it's become to the point where, like, I'm sitting next to the official head judge from Mr. Billy, next to Mr. Tito Ortos, who's like the head judge for a lot of competitions. And then you have me, and they're like, prepare yourself, because, you're next in line. You're taking over this world for us, because we're about to retire soon, and you're going to be there. So that's how, by me doing stuff that I do from the heart and I don't ask for money, I ended up getting booked for other stuff. So now that's how I became now. So I judge two of the most important world championships, which is the World Salsa Summit and the Eurozone Latino World Championships, which today they're going to be launching. They had to cancel because of the whole thing. They're moving it to December, and it's going to be in a beach area thing. So I can't wait for you to understand how they're about to announce that we're going to be in playa. So I'm excited. But anyway, just what Nestor said. And Nestor, thank you so much. And I'm glad that you're recovering from your surgeries and everything's going. I mean, if anything, he should be getting the Keeper of the Flame, because that guy is out there still trying to perform, still competing. I just saw you competing after going through like chemo. And I'm like, how are you doing it? Like, that's perseverance, And we got Mr. Edwin Sordo in the house.
Yes. He said you better not be working for free.
No, I'm not. I already got paid. I just did a little extra to help out. And guess what? Because of that little extra, but no. Edwin too, like, he's out there, like, he's one of the ones that motivated to start working with kids. I didn't work with kids, and I'm not gonna lie, and everyone knows this. I have no patience for kids except my nephew. And I ended up starting my All-Star Kids with about 30 kids, their first performance. They debuted at the Chicago Congress, and then COVID happened. And now I have a list of people waiting to sign up for my teams, and I'm like, how did this happen? Like, literally, I'm just like, I have no patience for these kids. I'm like, but I love them to death, So Edwin, shout out to you with your Estrellita de Sordo. So yeah, no, awesome.
No, absolutely. And I would say, at least before we hit to the conclusion, I want to thank you so much because for me, following really your career throughout the years, me also doing film, also having opportunities to do creative directive work within your Congress in the past and different events. In some ways, I've kind of followed your lead in a sense without even knowing it. And for me as well, my focus in the future is to have with my company bring back the vibes of Nuevo Tech, bring back those interview sessions of when things are normal. I want to be that person going to congresses, doing those backstage interviews, doing those really candid interviews, and getting people to understand the artists on a deeper level. And it's people like you that inspire me so much because, again, we need people to show us the way of how it's done so then we can put our own little flavor on it. And even Edwin here says you have high expectations, patience, no patience for the kids, brother, which makes it easier for you. Keep it up, And for me, Zeke, I love what you do. I love what you contribute, and I know that when things are definitely at a normalcy, how much more you have in store. And I definitely can't wait to see what happens. And I think,
I know with COVID, like I literally switched the gears and said, guess what? I'm starting all over, but in with already this experience. So now I'm taking this to the next level. So I feel like I set the bar back in the day with bachata teams when there wasn't many it was like a lot of bachata teams had their express shirts with the dress pants and the dress from whatever we did a performance with no formation. I started doing formation costumes, whatever. And Edwin, I know your high expectations true because you know what, with these kids, all the costumes I made by scratch, and these are costumes that would have cost these parents like $400 or $500.
yeah,
I didn't charge them that obviously, but I made them these dresses because I wanted them to feel what the adults and the kids were all like, oh my, like whatever. And that's the feeling for me that was like, oh, like that's why you broke my heart and you have me there, But the same effort I put in those kids, I put in all my teams. And I currently now have 9 teams by myself. I have 2 assistant directors for one of them, but like literally, I'm doing this by myself like that, like this craziness. It's been crazy, but everything from now I'm doing fitness. Mr. Sordo here is my inspiration with the 6-packs and like all these muscles. I'm gonna get there, but like now I'm stepping it up in a different round where I'm bringing more to the table. Everything from with my physique brand, everything because physique comes from the word physique.
exactly.
Physical body, but physique, Zeke. So, and also you said something about bringing back that essence and for me, it's about being creative and unique, and unique sound rhymes with Zeke. So anything that rhymes with Zeke is going to work is a formula to your success. So being unique is what's going to help you out there. So definitely for all of you starting out there in this world, or that, like you lost your mojo to continuing it, think back and be like, is this really for you? And if it is, keep pushing because, there's no reason to give up because you just got to keep pushing.
Absolutely. And now it kind of gives us to a conclusion where I love doing a segment called The Randoms, which is about a few questions here that allow myself and the audience to get to know you a lot better. So just let me know when you are ready.
Go.
All right. Number 1, favorite food.
Favorite food, pizza.
Okay. Number 2, what's your favorite Chicago team?
My favorite Chicago team used to be Gifted Souls. Unfortunately, Mr. Rocky retired. And currently right now, I would say all my all-star teams and Urban Vibe and Latin Rhythms.
All right. All right. Next question. Dream vacation destination.
Oh, anything with the beach.
Okay. The playa, anywhere, any playa.
I don't even care if it's a rinky-dinky little beach, but as long as there's sun, you'll catch me in my office.
Got you. Number 4, what did you want to be at 10 years old?
I wanted to be a wrestler.
Okay. Ooh. So wait, wrestler. Who was your favorite wrestler?
WWF. Everything.
Yes.
I was like from like the Undertaker times to like the Royal Rumble and the Mania. I went to WrestleMania and everything. So.
Oh my God. Amazing. All right. Next question. What is your spirit animal?
My spirit animal is, I have 2, the pig and the monkey.
Okay. I like that. All right. Next question is, what is a big don't for a person when they're dancing with you? What is something that just irks your nerves when you're dancing with someone?
As like a social dancer, or as a dancer?
Social dance.
That you're trying too hard. Just relax. Like, don't show off. Like, and don't use me to show you off. And don't and don't expect me to show you off. Like it should be very calm and relaxed. Like there's no agenda.
Okay, nice. What would be your superpower?
My superpower would be to be able to make a lot of costumes and get to sleep.
All right, I like
Now
that.
after this, I'm finishing a costume that's
Ooh.
gluing as we speak.
Oh my God. All right. Next question. 3 people that have been most influential to you at this point in your life.
All right, Miss Gladys Franco from G Franco.
Mhm.
She pushed me to open up my dance studio and became my partner. I would say Miss Tamara Livolsi because she's always putting me on check, and that's her and Tito are one of the ones I admire the most. And definitely Saya and MG.
Love it. Next question. Special talent that many people wouldn't know you have.
Well, the fact that I'm self-taught at sewing, that's one. And I think that's it. Like I'm not very. That's I think like I'm pretty artistic. So I mean that's always been pretty like my special talent, I would say.
Okay. And it brings us now to our last question. If you were on an island, what would 3 things that you would have to have with you? But disclaimer, there is no Wi-Fi.
There is no Wi-Fi for sure. My phone or anything that could capture all my pictures, something with pictures or something I can still see memories or videos that I can like replay. Definitely my family and close friends, and for sure rhinestones because I love anything with bling. So
Man, that's awesome.
and
And
sun lotion.
okay. Well, thank you, Zeke, so much for doing this segment. I love doing this because now it helps me get to learn a little bit more about you and how much you love rhinestones for sure. And honestly, now it brings us to the conclusion of our discussion tonight, or today, actually. And honestly, Zeke, I really thank you from the bottom of my heart because you being a leader in this community for over 2+ decades, I would say, your contribution to our community is evident. Your relationships, your networking, you really care about your community, not just from Chicago, but also abroad. And having you on here today, even though you're so busy, it means a lot for you taking your time out. And I would love to know if, before we go, if you had any last few words for myself and the audience, and also contact info on how people can reach you.
All right, through Facebook, it's just Zeke Ruvalcaba, or Physique Dance Academy, and then my Instagram, which I'm getting a little bit better. Yo, follow me, please. If you're listening to follow me, I need followers. I only have like 300 or something, some random number. It's Physique Dance Chicago.
Okay.
And I guess the biggest thing for me, like I said, was if you're gonna do this, like you need to have like that passion and that dance passion, like in your heart in order to do this. And you have to have thick skin because people are going to talk about you. People are going to, like good and bad, people are going to praise you. People are going to hate you. Like, it's just going to be like so many things. So you have to have thick skin. And if you don't have that, like, this is not the world for you. Like literally, no joke, as much as they try to tell you. And more importantly, be unique, be creative, because there's going to be a lot of people that can do a Suzy Q, but who does it better and who can teach it better and who can make it look different. There's going to be so many different things. So just learning how to be unique and be yourself. And it's great to be inspired by, but never imitate, because guess what? There's only that one person. That one person going to be that it. As much as you try, you'll never be them, So you can be close to them, but never be them. So why not just create your own entity and just be unique and be creative? So
wow.
That's my
Amazing last words. So thank you, Zeke, for coming on today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Live Discussions with Diamond Podcast. I'm Diamond, here with Zeke from Physique Dance Academy. Correct?
Everyone, be good. Yes.
Yes, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Be safe and stay well.